Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We are doing a retrospective on the live-action Superman movies. We will be talking, after we talk about the movies, we will talk a little bit about the live-action TV shows, and then at the end of this video, we'll try to talk about what some of our favorite Superman comics are. But I'm joined in this video by my friend Jeremy.
Hi everyone, I hope you're all entertained by this.
And my friend John.
Hey everybody.
What do you guys think of Superman as a character?
I think he's a great character. He represents the good in all of us and the good that we are all capable of doing. And, he's, just such a beacon of hope. And he's a very lovable character. And, he's just someone we should all aspire to be like.
Exactly, kids. You should jump off a roof and try to fly. I'm kidding, by the way. Please don't fucking do that. What do you think of Superman as a character?
Yeah, I agree. Not only that, even though I prefer Batman, but still, I've always still enjoyed Superman. I never really been the person who says no, Batman's better than Superman. I enjoy reading the comic books. I enjoy also watching the movies.
Yeah, Superman is just such an iconic character. I mean, personally, I'm more of a Batman person, but I have a lot of respect for characters that have made such an impact on pop culture. Not even just pop culture, but culture in general. I mean, Superman really has become an American icon, and next to Batman, he's arguably DC's most iconic character. Now, Superman was first created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, but actually, before the first Superman comic, there was actually a short story called The Reign of the Superman, which was written by Jerry Siegel and illustrated by Joe Shuster, but the Superman of that story was actually the villain and much different than the comic book incarnation of the character. But the Superman that we know first appeared in Action Comics issue number 1 in 1938, and as we already pointed out, the character has gone on to become such an iconic character, and for a lot of people, he really is the quintessential superhero. When people think the word superhero, usually Superman is what comes to mind. The comics were adapted into a series of radio serials, and there were the Fleischer Superman animated shorts. Again, I don't really want to talk too much about those because in this video I really want to focus on the live action Superman stuff. Now, the first live-action adaptation of Superman was the 1948 serial called Superman, which had a sequel in 1950 called Atom Man vs. Superman. Now, I have both of these on a DVD set, but I have not watched these, so I'm going to defer to Jeremy and John on these ones. Have you seen either of these serials?
I've seen some of the serials. I've seen, or should I say, parts of some of the serials. It's been a long time. I remember they were okay. From what I saw, they're not something I would watch over and over again, though. Kirk Allen, whose autograph I actually do have, he was okay. I wouldn't really rank him as one of the best Supermen, but he does a serviceable job.
John, have you seen these serials?
I own them too. I only saw maybe one or two in parts of them, and they weren't terrible. I agree with Jeremy. They were not something I would watch over and over again. Kind of the same with the Batman serials of the 40s too.
Now we come to 1951's Superman and the Mole Men, and not counting the serials, this was the first feature-length movie based on the Superman comics, and this was the first time that George Reeves played Superman. This movie also spawned the TV series Adventures of Superman. What do you guys think of Superman and the Mole Men?
It's pretty entertaining. Let's be honest, the plot of it is pretty silly, these, little people coming out of the ground and pretty much just running around doing nothing. Other than, I guess, scaring people unintentionally. But it's entertaining for what it is. It's good for what it is. And, George Reeves, he, I would say, is one of the best Supermen. He just had this natural charm and charisma about him. And, it's common knowledge that he didn't like being Superman. He, felt it was degrading and, beneath him because, he was trained at the Pasadena Playhouse. That's the same place where, Marlon Brando got trained. He wanted to be a big screen actor. So to be reduced to playing this, running around in tights on some children's TV show, yeah, it was degrading to him. But even so, he still gave both this movie and every episode of the TV series his all, and that is to be commended. But as for the movie itself, it's good for what it is, but it's also kind of subpar, I would say.
John, what do you think of Superman and the Mole Men?
I haven't seen this since I was, I think maybe 12 or 13 years old, because I have it on DVD with the whole Superman series, and it was alright. I kind of agree. It's, nothing special, and the mole people aren't, nothing crazy. It's just basically Superman helping these people who came from outer space, and...
They're not from outer space, it's from underground.
Oh, underground, okay, sorry. It's been a long time, so don't blame me on that. And yeah, I agree. George Reeves was definitely one of my favorite Superman actors. He definitely was charismatic, and I definitely felt like he brought Superman to life from the comic books for that time. And yeah, it was alright. It was nothing special. Again, not like something I was going to watch over and over again.
You see, I actually really liked this one. What I liked about it was, honestly, I think the story's actually pretty mature, if you really stop to think about it, because it's really about fear. The villains of this movie are really the townspeople, and their kind of ignorant fear of these mole men who kind of just want to be left alone. And I think that was so relevant for the time. This was right at the beginning of the whole Red Scare, the Cold War era. Even the fact that the mole men carry mild radiation, I think, was definitely a reflection of the Cold War. So I actually think the actual story is pretty mature. I think there are some pretty mature themes at work here, and you could tell it's low budget, and they probably didn't have the budget to have Superman fighting or anything. And I think they made up for that low budget with, in my opinion, a really good story. But that's just my opinion, of course.
Well, like I said, it's good for what it is, and I'd like to point out that one of the mole men is played by Jerry Marin, who is best known for being the member of the Lollipop Guild who gives Dorothy the lollipop in The Wizard of Oz.
Wow.
I wrote to him, and one of the questions I asked was what was working with George Reeves on Superman and the Mole Men like, and he just said, okay. But yeah, George is just... He definitely shines as Superman. It's common knowledge that he didn't want to be there.
I always think to myself, when I read about, George Reeves as an actor, how, yeah, he was a great Superman, but it's kind of like a tragic, sad story about how, he was a star from Superman, but then after Superman, he was typecast. Nobody, saw him at anything else, and I think it's an unsolved mystery about how he died. I really don't think there's no, explanation. I think it's probably one mystery will probably never be solved. I hate to say that.
If you want to not just know more, but see an interesting take on that, I highly recommend the movie Hollywoodland, which stars Ben Affleck as George Reeves. George, he was depressed after Adventures of Superman ended because he couldn't get another job. I always felt sorry for him because, like I said, he was a classically trained actor. He wanted to be a big movie star, not, running around in tights. In fact, I remember Phyllis Coates in an interview saying that on the very first day of production of Adventures of Superman, he invited her into his dressing room where he poured 2 glasses of, I believe, whiskey. He gave her one and then held his up and said, "Here's the bottom of the barrel."
I don't really, not that I mean to get off topic about what I'm about to say, how before George Reeves was Superman, he was in Gone with the Wind, and he also, you ever saw From Here to Eternity?
Nah.
Oh, good movie. He was in that, but it was a very brief, short part. But I highly recommend it. That's a great movie, and the book's really good too.
Jack Larson also said in an interview that when he first met George, he told him, "Oh, I loved you in the movie So Proudly We Hail," and George said to him, "If the producer of that movie hadn't died while I was off fighting in the war, then I wouldn't have to be here today in this monkey suit." And Jack said that was the only time he had ever heard George say anything negative about being Superman.
Even though I said I wanted to save our discussions on the TV shows till after we talk about the movies, since this movie is so closely related to the TV show, what do you guys think of the TV series Adventures of Superman?
I always liked it. I think it's a lot of fun. It's obviously very low budget. A lot of the scripts really were, I'll be honest, a lot of them really weren't good, but, it had George Reeves, and as I said, he gave every episode his all. He was lovable, he was charming, he was charismatic, he was a great role model for kids. I always heard that he loved kids. So, it's an enjoyable show to watch. Even the bad episodes are fun to watch, but it also had some very good episodes. The pilot episode is very good. Most of the episodes of seasons 1 and 2 are very good. I think it was season 3 onwards where the show really took a dip in quality.
I thought the show was okay, and yeah, I agreed. It was like low budget, a little campy, not the best quality of Superman. But again, that was the '50s. That was the best quality for its time, and I haven't really seen the show in a long time. I remember I watched maybe 2 or 3 seasons, and
Jack Larson also did a great job as Jimmy Olsen. He injected a lot of, great comedic qualities into Jimmy and, made him, also pretty lovable, just like Superman. Funny thing is, Jack, like George, he also didn't want to do it and only did it because he needed the money. And he also got badly typecast as Jimmy Olsen, and then when the series ended, he couldn't get another job, so he turned to screenwriting, or playwriting, one of the two. And he found a lot of success in that, so that's pretty good. John Hamilton as Perry White, he was great. Just the right amount of strictness and there's a word I'm trying to think of, gruffness, but also, he was looking out for his employees, which is good.
Now we come to 1978's Superman, also known as Superman the Movie. Now, this was directed by Richard Donner, who also directed movies like The Omen, The Goonies, and Lethal Weapon. The movie was also co-written by Mario Puzo, who also wrote the book The Godfather, which Francis Ford Coppola made into the 1972 film of the same name. How do you guys feel about 1978's Superman?
It's a great movie. It's, it really gives us a charming, flying, powerful Superman in Christopher Reeve. And he's just fantastic. He plays both Clark Kent and Superman differently. As Clark Kent, he pretends to be very bumbling and very clumsy, and that's just brilliant to throw people off to the fact that he's Superman. And as Superman, he's calm and confident and strong, and it's great to watch.
Oh yeah, I think for a lot of people, Christopher Reeve is probably the definitive live-action Superman. And he's so great in this role. What do you think of this movie?
I love it. It's probably one of my favorite Superman films of all time. It's just Christopher Reeve. He is perfect. He really is Superman. You felt Superman was really there, right in front of your eyes when he flew, and also when he came out of the phone booth. It was like, oh my god,
you will believe a man can fly.
Exactly. You really felt like he could fly. It's just such a great movie.
I do feel like there are some goofy moments in the film. Like, for me, the film is almost like a weird mix between the goofier superhero stuff that we got before, but also there are some serious moments where it's almost like a mix between the goofier superhero stuff and the darker superhero stuff, if you know what I mean.
I kind of agree, especially you don't mind if I talk about this already, about Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor?
Oh, yeah.
I'm probably going to get hate for saying it. I love Gene Hackman, great actor, but I really never cared for him as Lex Luthor. I really thought he was too goofy, too camp. I get what they were kind of going for, but he just did not do it for me as Lex Luthor. That's probably my one complaint about the film.
All right. What do you think of Gene Hackman as Lex?
I will admit he's pretty campy, but he's enjoyable to watch. But yeah, I always get a kick out of the scene where he's in that giant pool and Otis brings him his robe while he's still in the pool, and he says, "Otis, next time, wait until I'm out of the pool," because he just ruined the robe by bringing it into the water. But Gene Hackman's a great actor, and he is great in this role. I prefer Lex Luthor to be serious, but it's good for what it is.
I feel like it was a turning point of showing how we can make good superhero movies.
Oh yeah, if it wasn't for this movie, it's hard to say if we would even have Tim Burton's Batman 11 years later.
Yeah.
Should also talk about Marlon Brando as Jor-El. He was great in everything he did. Although I must say, by this point in his career, Brando had gotten very lazy with his acting, to the point where he refused to memorize his lines, and in the scene where he's talking to baby Kal-El, he's reading his lines off the baby's diaper. He also, because he was such a high-profile name and such a legend, he was able to demand $3.7 million for only 2 weeks of work. But, he's great in the role, I think, and also he definitely brings a very heavy cinematic presence to the movie, I think.
What do you think of Marlon Brando?
He's great in it. He's probably, again, anytime I think I read the comic books, I envision his voice and it says Jor-El. There was just something about his voice I love so much as Jor-El that just made me think, that's Jor-El.
I love Jor-El's line, they can be a great people, Kal-El. They wish to be. They only lack the light to show them the way. That is just a perfect line for that character.
I wanted to mention this before. Actually, I also love it how the way they show Superman's origin when Krypton was destroyed, and it was done so perfectly the way they shot it.
I will say, for me, the real heart of this movie, though, is the chemistry between Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder as Lois Lane.
Yeah, she's it's interesting to watch their chemistry, especially in the first scene, atop her apartment. That's a great scene. And of course when they're flying, that's also great.
Oh, I love their chemistry. They're like the perfect Lois and Clark dynamic duo, those two.
Before we move on to the other movies, it would be a sin not to talk about John Williams' iconic as hell score. I mean, what a run that guy had between this, the Jaws score, and the Star Wars theme. Yeah, this is definitely one of his most recognizable scores.
It's legendary.
It's awesome. It's one of the best scores ever.
Also, the scenes of young Clark Kent, on the farm in Smallville, those were pretty good. And I like how, after his adoptive father dies of the heart attack, he and his mother are at the funeral, and he says, even with all these powers, I still couldn't save him. The music in that scene after, as they're leaving the funeral is just, it's so perfect, and it's almost what you would expect to be at the climax of the film, but it fits really well here too.
I kind of wish they kind of maybe say that for maybe later in the film instead of or even at the whole point behind it. But I always like it when in Superman comic books, when him and his father have that bond, and they whenever Superman had no idea what to do in a situation, his dad was someone he would look up to and ask about how would you feel or what would you do in this kind of situation. His dad always seemed to have the kind of right advice for him.
Yeah, I also want to say Luthor's plot, the character's pretty goofy, but he is planning to kill millions of people with those missiles, so that's still pretty serious. I also want to talk about the ending of the movie, which a lot of people say is a deus ex machina, where Superman, so devastated by Lois's death, flies around the Earth backwards and makes it turn backwards and turn back time. That's asking to suspend a little too much disbelief. Although I must say, the shot where he's so in anguish and then he, he flies upwards, that is a great shot. Yeah, one more person I want to bring up is Jackie Cooper, who plays Perry White. He's great as Perry White. He, like John Hamilton, I think has the right amount of gruffness and, but also concern for his employees' well-being. And, Jackie Cooper, he was in the business for a long time. He was a child actor in the 30s. I believe he either was nominated or won an Oscar as a child for the movie Skippy. He demands a lot of respect as an actor, I think.
Now we come to 1980's Superman 2. And now, this is actually my favorite of the Superman movies, but specifically the Richard Donner cut, which was released in 2006. I haven't seen the original cut of the movie, which is the Richard Lester version, since I was a little kid. I know that one is a lot goofier. The Richard Donner cut tries to be a little bit darker, and I think that's why I like it. The reason this is my favorite is really just because of Zod's gang. To me, Terrence Stamp's General Zod is a far more memorable villain than Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor, in my opinion, at least. What do you boys think of Superman 2, either cut?
I think it's very good, and Terrence Stamp makes a great villain, he camps it up a bit, but even so, he's definitely a lot more intimidating than Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely good. I've seen both cuts. Probably the Donner cut I think was better than the original cut, and love Terrence Stamp as General Zod. Definitely a lot more scary and intimidating than Hackman for sure.
I will say that I do always enjoy watching the fight between Superman and General Zod and his cronies. And I just love General Zod's arrogance and his demanding nature, and also the female crony of his who is just follows what he says, but is also she's pretty independent on her own. And I just love when she says, General Zod does not take orders, he gives them. And I also love how
I fucking love Sarah Douglas in this movie.
She's great. I also love when she first sees Lois Lane and says, what an undemanding male the Superman must be. She just loves to insult people, too, and that's just great. And I also love when General Zod just arrogantly says, come to me, Superman! I defy you!
I also love it how we get to see more of, Lois and Clark, how, they're because that's when she finds out that he's Superman. Like, there's like more deeper like feelings for each other, but at the same time, it's like Superman has two choices. Does he want to be a human being, or does he continue his like career as Superman? And we see how that happens. He chooses to be regular, but he realizes, you know what? I can't run away from being Superman. I got to be Superman again.
I will also say that I love how sleazy Luthor is. Like, when he tries to double-cross Superman at the end, but then after Superman, anticipates the double crossing, he tries to then do a complete 180 and says, "Oh, I was with you the whole time." It's like, no, you weren't. Who do you think you're fooling?
I honestly liked Gene Hackman's Luthor a lot more this time around because he is such a snake in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a great movie overall. Whether it's the Richard Lester cut or the Richard Donner cut, you can't go wrong either way.
I always tell people if they want to watch Superman 2, watch the Donner cut first, then you can decide which version you like. Donner was basically like directing Superman 2, but then he got fired because of like direction and production problems, and that's how they got Richard Lester for the directing job. But when he came in, he made it his own. And why, when you watch the Donner cut of Superman 2, this is basically the way Donner would have done it, not the way Richard Lester would have done it.
Yeah, because basically the studio wanted something campier, Donner wanted something darker, and Richard Lester is the one who delivered the campier product. Right. Now we move on to 1983's Superman 3. Now, there are two things I like about this film. Richard Pryor is honestly pretty funny in the film, and Christopher Reeve looks like he's having a lot of fun playing evil Superman. That's about it. Yeah, this movie's not very good. What do you boys think of Superman 3?
Definitely marked the dip in quality of the series.
This was basically the beginning of the downfall for the Superman series at this point. And Richard Pryor, I'm sorry, again, great, funny guy, but I just do not see him as in a Superman film. He just does not strike me to be in a Superman film. And Gene Hackman wasn't in this. It was Robert Vaughn was basically the poor man's version of Lex Luthor, because Gene Hackman said he was not interested in coming back, and that's how they got Robert Vaughn to basically be like a poor man's version of Lex Luthor, like I said before.
What do you think of Annette O'Toole as Lana Lang?
She does a good job. She's a good actress. So yeah, she's alright. I do like Christopher Reeve in this movie. His performance as Dark Superman is very good, and the movie's big saving grace is definitely the junkyard scene where good Clark Kent battles evil Superman and regains control of himself. That's a very good scene. I think the comedy with Richard Pryor and also the slapstick does go a bit too far. And Robert Vaughn, who I've had the pleasure of meeting, is a great actor, but he's no Lex Luthor.
And then you also have, as John said, he's kind of poor man's Lex Luthor. You kind of have poor man's Brainiac at the end of the movie, in a way.
That part scared the shit out of me when I was a kid for some reason. I don't know why.
Honestly, you're not the only one who says that. I didn't see this as a little kid, but I know a lot of people who say that same thing. Apparently, this scared like a whole generation of kids.
One thing I definitely will agree, the two things that work on the film was definitely Annette O'Toole as Lana Lang. She was the good part. And also when you see like bad Superman fight, good like Clark Kent at the junkyard, that was pretty cool, where he's like fighting his like alter ego.
The actor who plays Lana Lang's, I don't know if it's like her ex-husband or her boyfriend, that actor was in one of my favorite Tales from the Crypt episodes, Three's a Crowd.
Yeah, I know the episode you're talking about. He plays a piece of shit there, too.
We didn't really see Margot Kidder that much as Lois Lane, so but I think I can see why. Maybe because we wanted to see more of like Lana Lang and Clark Kent's relationship.
I don't know how true this is, but I heard the reason she's not in the movie that much is because she really... One, I heard she wanted to get paid too much than they were willing to pay her, and also she didn't like how they treated Richard Donner with Superman 2, so she really didn't want to work on this movie at all. That's what I heard. I don't know the full story behind that.
I think that's true, that she was angry at Richard Donner's treatment by the Salkinds, and so that's why her role in this movie is very reduced.
In 1984, we had Supergirl, which even though it's Supergirl, it is supposed to be in continuity with the Richard Donner films. Like, I think the same actor, Mark McClure, plays Jimmy Olsen in Supergirl. I've never seen it. I know it's like considered to be like one of the worst movies ever made. Have you boys seen it?
I have not.
Me neither.
Alright, fair enough. Then, fuck Supergirl then. Now we come to Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, which was produced by Canon Films, the same company that made films like Masters of the Universe, Invasion USA, and they produced most of the Death Wish sequels. The film was actually co-written by Christopher Reeve and was originally going to be directed by Wes Craven, but apparently Craven and Reeve did not get along, so the film ended up being directed by Sidney J. Furie, who also directed an excellent 1982 horror film called The Entity with Barbara Hershey, which I would much rather be talking about right now than this fucking movie. I did a review on this movie back in 2017. I haven't seen the movie since then. I did not rewatch it for this retrospective because I'm not that much of a masochist. Before I let Jeremy and John talk, I just want to list off some of the stupid things about this movie. Now, with all of the Cold War stuff in the movie, you honestly could have told a really powerful story with that, but in the film, you have Superman basically declaring himself dictator of the world by disarming all the countries, yet you never have a moment where Superman maybe questions himself and is like, is it really my place to do this? Nuclear Man is one of the stupidest villains I've ever seen in a movie. And I'm not a scientist, but I do know that the moon controls a lot of the Earth's gravitational pull, so I'm pretty sure that if you physically moved the moon, that's an extinction-level event right there, but what do I know? Those are my reasons for why Superman 4 sucks. Boys, what are your reasons?
Well, pretty much all the ones you said. Plus, I mean, yeah, do you really think all these countries are okay with Superman just taking it upon himself to take away their nuclear weapons? The special effects are also god-awful. I mean, they're so terrible. Especially the shots of Superman flying, they're so fake and so phony. And it's funny that you mentioned Wes Craven, because I actually, in one of my letters to the late great director, I did ask him if it was true that he was supposed to direct Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, and he just simply responded no.
You see, I saw an interview with him where he said he was going to direct Superman 4.
I was supposed to direct Superman 4. I had an interview with Christopher Reeves, and he said, Wes Craven will never direct my film.
This letter it got back to me like a month or so before he died, and he died of brain cancer, and this is sad to say, maybe it was starting to affect his memory. Or it could also just be that the experience of dealing with Christopher Reeve was so aggravating that maybe he just wanted to deny it. I really can't say for sure, but either way, that's what he said.
John, what are your reasons for why Superman 4 sucks?
This movie is really, really bad. It killed the franchise. This was the last time you saw Christopher Reeve as Superman. The film makes no sense. And yes, I agree. The special effects are really, really bad. And also, the part when he goes up into space with Muriel Hemingway's character, wait a second, she should be dead at this point because you can't breathe in space. That makes no fucking sense. Also, Nuclear Man, stupidest, dumbest superhero villain ever in a superhero film and a Superman movie.
Yeah, Nuclear Man is pretty stupid. I mean, there's that one part where he just bluntly says, or I will hurt people. I mean, that is just terrible line delivery, and that's a terrible line in general. And another thing is, when he's first born, how is he born with clothes on? I mean, that's just ridiculous, too.
You know what's also ridiculous?
What?
Okay, a strand of Superman's hair. It's strong enough to hold up a giant weight, yet could be snapped with a pair of scissors.
John Cryer's in this film, who from 2.5 Men and now plays Lex Luthor on the Supergirl show, and he's really bad in this movie.
Yeah, he's pretty annoying in this movie. He's Lenny Luthor, and yes, he is pretty annoying.
Yeah, this film, it's really bad, and it's just really sad that this killed the Superman franchise. We did not get another Superman film for another, almost 20 years, and this is, like I said, the last time Christopher Reeve this is the last time everybody played their characters.
Now, before we move on to Superman Returns, we should mention that in the 90s there was going to be a project called Superman Lives, which was apparently going to be written by Kevin Smith and directed by Tim Burton, and was going to have Nicolas Cage as Superman. And there's a whole documentary made about why this movie never came to be, called The Death of Superman Lives. What do you think of this project? Do you think it could have worked at all?
Maybe. It's hard to say for certain. It certainly is very interesting to think about. I mean, I've seen the behind-the-scenes photos. I've seen a little bit of the documentary, and it looks like it could have really been interesting. Whether it would have been any good or not, well, that's up for debate. But it would have been interesting to see. That's what I'll say.
Well, I kind of agree with Jeremy. It's kind of tough to say because the film was never made, so we'll basically never know the film would have, turned out decent or bad, and it is interesting to see how, even though it was never made, but you see photos, behind the scene footage of when Nicolas Cage was going through the costume process of almost being Superman.
So in 2006 we got Superman Returns, which is sort of a spiritual sequel to the Richard Donner Superman movie and Superman 2, ignoring the continuity of all the Superman films in between. The film was directed by Bryan Singer, who also directed The Usual Suspects, the Stephen King adaptation Apt Pupil, and the X-Men movies. The movie was also co-written by Michael Daltrey, who would go on to write and direct films like Trick or Treat, Krampus, and Godzilla King of the Monsters, the most recent Godzilla film. Now, I did a review on this film back in 2017. I did not rewatch it for this retrospective. I know a lot of people really hate this movie. I don't hate this one, but I do find it to be very forgettable and kind of dull. I appreciate that it tries to be a little more grounded and more of a character drama, but it doesn't really succeed at that. I will say this, Frank Langella as Perry White is inspired casting. What do you boys think of Superman Returns?
I don't think it's a great movie, but I certainly don't think it's the big dumpster fire that everyone makes it out to be. It's got some good things going for it. It's got a mostly good cast, and it's got some beautiful imagery too, especially when at the beginning when Clark Kent is on the farm in Smallville, and I think it's just either dawn or dusk, but you see that beautiful farm sky. It's fantastic. It really is. And the plane rescue scene is also very good. You get to see Superman in action, and I think Brandon Routh does a very decent job as Superman and Clark Kent. I think he's a good actor.
I haven't really seen this film in a long time, and I didn't like it when I saw it in the theaters, and I wouldn't say I hated it, it was really, really bad. I just felt like there was just something missing about it. There was just something about it I felt like something didn't feel right to me. And again, Brandon Routh was okay as Superman, but I just feel like something was missing in this film that's hard to describe. Kate Bosworth, I really did not think she was not that good of a Lois Lane, even though she's a good actress, but I just didn't like her portrayal as Lois Lane, especially when she wrote the article about why the world is not needed as Superman. I'm like, really? You gotta be freaking kidding me. Lois Lane would write that in an article.
At 22 years old, Kate Bosworth was too young to play Lois Lane. Yes. I mean, she looks like she's 12, and also far too young to mother a son that's 10.
She definitely is probably one of the weaker parts of the film, mainly because, okay, it's supposed to be in continuity with the first two Superman movies, so this is the same incarnation of Lois Lane that Margot Kidder played. I'm not sure how long after Superman 2 this is supposed to be, but at this point, Lois Lane should be in her late 40s at least.
I agree. I totally agree. They really dropped the ball with that casting.
In the film, Kevin Spacey plays Lex Luthor. What do you think of him as Lex Luthor?
I mean, I think he does a pretty good job in this movie. He's very intimidating. He's much darker than Gene Hackman ever was.
He was alright, but like I said, it wasn't really him. It was really the script and the writing. If the film was better, he could have been a better Lex Luthor.
Okay, we do have to address an elephant in the room. Kevin Spacey, he was a great actor, but based on the allegations against him, the man is kind of a piece of shit.
I met Kevin Spacey.
Did he touch you?
Well, I did shake his hand, so I guess that counts. It was May of 2017, 5 months before the allegations against him came out. I was in New York City, and I was waiting at the stage door for an actor named Chris Cooper, who was in a show. I was trying to get his autograph on this 8x12 photo of the poster for American Beauty, which is a movie that Kevin Spacey was also in. So I was waiting there, and then all of a sudden, I look out into the street, and I see a camera crew walking by. And I'm thinking, oh, what's going on here? And then, out of nowhere, I see Kevin Spacey walking with them. And I mean, it was a thrill to see him there. I mean, oh my God, Kevin Spacey just popped up out of nowhere. And I asked, oh, can I have your autograph? And I had the marker and the American Beauty photo out to him. And he said, oh, sure you can. And he took my marker and he signed it. And then I said, oh, can I get a photo with you? And he said, sure you can. And then he took a couple more photos with some other people that were there. And then they resumed filming his interview, which was what I found out it later was. It was an interview with, I forget the guy's name, the reporter who was with him to promote the next season of House of Cards. What a thrill that whole thing was. And I went back to where I was waiting for Chris Cooper, and he arrived shortly after, so I got his autograph on the photo too. I do want to stress that I do condemn what he has done, okay? You know, I want to make that perfectly clear. I condemn it. I do not condone it. And, just because I've spoken about meeting him and his acting talent does not mean I condone it. You know, even before that, Kevin Spacey wasn't known as one of the nicest celebrities when it came to signing autographs or taking photos with fans, but I realize, now that the most likely reason he did it for me was because there were cameras on him. I have not, or I should say I've rarely posted either my photo with him or any candids I took of him in the time since. The only time I did post my photo with him was in one of the, celebrity photo op groups on Facebook that I'm in. There was a thread that asked for people to post their photos and autographs from and with disgraced celebrities. So I thought, oh, perfect, I can post my photo with Kevin Spacey here and no one will give me any crap about it. I was wrong. Posted it. I commented it on the thread, and almost immediately, this really obnoxious bitch replied to it saying, oh, how could you take a photo with him and be proud of it, and then post it? Oh, makes you just as bad as him. I responded saying, no, I don't condone what he did. This was taken 5 months before the allegations came out. Yeah, I don't condone what he did. And also, this was what the thread was asking for, photos with disgraced celebrities. But even when presented with that indisputable evidence, she still continued to hurl verbal abuse at me and called me scum and, just insult me, until finally she realized that I wasn't going to back down and said, oh, I'm just going to block you, even though she was the one in the wrong, and she blocked me like a coward. When people ask me what meeting Kevin Spacey was like, even with the allegations, I'm not going to lie about how I felt that day.
Well, you shouldn't really apologize for it, because this was before, all of that came out, so it's like, I didn't know. It would be one thing if you wanted to go get his picture after the allegations came out, but this was all before all that, so it's not like you're Nostradamus or something. If we're going to address the elephant in the room with Kevin Spacey, we might as well also address the elephant in the room with Bryan Singer. Bryan Singer's also kind of a piece of shit based on allegations that came out about him.
I've heard a lot of stories about about Singer, how even during the making of At Pupil, there was, let's just say, not good things that happened during the making of that film that people are traumatized from.
I am someone who can separate the art from the artist. If you can't do that, then that's fine, but you have absolutely no right to criticize those who can. Go back to what you said about Frank Langella. Yeah, he's great as Perry White. I met him too, and he's a really nice guy. I especially love the scene where, Clark is first coming back to his job at the Daily Planet, and he thanks Perry White, and Perry White says, oh, don't thank me, thank him for dying. I just love how insensitive he is towards that. It's comedically perfect. Like I said, there are some great action sequences in the movie. And, I do also like the scene at the end where Superman confronts Lex Luthor and he says something like, all I see is some sick old man's dream. I guess that sort of shows Lex's depravity. Although I must say, it also has its dumb moments, like, Lois being stupid enough to bring her son with her to investigate the cruise ship that Lex is on. It's like, why would you bring your son into harm's way like that? Also, I think we need to talk about that kid being Superman's son. I thought that was an interesting plot point, and when I saw this in the theater, it was a shock to just see, him throw that piano at that henchman. One more thing I just want to mention, Cal Penn is one of Luthor's henchmen. It's so funny, every time I see him on the screen, I just want to shout, hey, Kumar, when are we going to White Castle? I mean, it's just, yeah, you don't expect to see Kumar in a Superman movie playing a very serious role. And I also want to mention the cameos in Superman Returns from the original cast members from Adventures of Superman. Beginning, we see Noel Neill as, the wealthy widow who Kevin Spacey's Lex Luthor has, sort of trapped in a marriage, and is basically stealing her money. And also we see Jack Larson as the bartender at the bar where Clark Kent and Jimmy Olsen go. And, I just thought those were great homages to Adventures of Superman. And, Christopher Reeve was also supposed to have a cameo, but sadly he passed away before he could film it. So the movie is dedicated to him, which is great. That's just wonderful thing to have it dedicated to him.
Now we come to 2013's Man of Steel, which was written by David S. Goyer, who also wrote the Blade movies, and co-wrote Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. The film was also directed by Zack Snyder, who also directed the Dawn of the Dead remake, the adaptation of Frank Miller's 300, and the adaptation of Alan Moore's Watchmen. This is a reboot of the Superman film series, and is the first film of what is known as the DC Extended Universe, which is DC's equivalent of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, what do you boys think of Man of Steel?
It's alright. It's definitely not a perfect film. It's flawed, but I can find some things to enjoy in it.
Honestly, I'm not really a fan of the movie. I mean, there are some things that were okay. Like, Cavill was good as Superman. I just feel like that Snyder, rushed it, and I feel like the story is just not there, and yeah, I'm just not really... Oh, yeah, I don't like Amy Adams as much as, Lois was saying. Love her as an actress, but she's just not one of my favorite actresses to play Lois Lane. She doesn't, bring any, personality to the character. She's just there. That's it.
See, I actually really kind of like this one. It's not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I like it. It definitely tries to cop some of the style of, the Nolan films, but kind of misses the point of why Nolan's films worked. But I still enjoy the film. I do like Michael Shannon a lot as General Zod. Definitely has a very different take on the character than Terrence Stamp did. What do you think of Michael Shannon's Zod?
He's great. He is brutal. He is intimidating. He is no nonsense. I mean, yeah, he definitely takes a much more serious approach to the role than Terrence Stamp did.
Yeah, I guess he was alright, but again, I haven't seen the film in a long time. One thing I wanted to point out too is that I think I'll give Snyder credit. At least he was trying to do something different, make Superman his own, unlike what Bryan Singer did in the last film.
When General Zod says to the simulated version of Jor-El, after I rip the codex from your son's flesh, I will rebuild Krypton atop his bones.
Yeah, what I liked about Zod in this movie is I almost put him in the same category as Ra's al Ghul from Batman Begins, where it does seem like he genuinely believes what he's doing is the right thing.
Kevin Costner, again, another great actor, but I really did not like him as Jonathan Kent. I hated the part, when he was saying, you could have been exposed. He goes, what was I supposed to do, let him die? And he said, maybe. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah, a lot of people took issue with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could see why. I mean, I get the point that they're trying to get with this movie, this idea of, okay, what would it actually be like if a being like Superman really did show up? How much would that really change society? So I guess I can justify it in a way where Jonathan Kent does not want Clark to expose himself because he knows what an impact on the world that's going to make, but I see why people have an issue with it.
I also want to talk about Henry Cavill. He's an okay Superman, I think. He's certainly no Christopher Reeve or George Reeves, but, I think he does an okay job. And I had the pleasure of, well, I shouldn't say pleasure, actually, because it was not a pleasure, but I got his autograph in 2015 at the Man from U.N.C.L.E. premiere, and oh my God, it was a complete and total shit show. It was a massive crowd, and people were pushing and shoving and screaming. I mean, I know I really made a stink about getting Bill Skarsgård's autograph in our It review, but this was maybe 20 times worse. I mean, I managed to get both my Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice logo photo and my Entertainment Weekly signed by Mr. Cavill, and I took a couple of candid photos of him while he was signing, and in one of them, yeah, you can definitely tell that he's losing his patience. I mean, he looks like he just stepped in a bad piece of kryptonite. I can definitely admire the training he did to get into the right physique to play Superman. I mean, he really went all out. He did all kinds of weight training. He stuck to a specific diet. I mean, that is not easy to do, and he really got this, godlike muscular physique, and I do admire that greatly. And I think the chemistry between him and General Zod is very good. Going back to Michael Shannon, I do appreciate that the character, like you said, does truly believe he's doing the right thing, even though we know he's about to commit mass genocide. And Michael Shannon is a great actor who I have had the pleasure of meeting, and I've gotten him to sign some Man of Steel photos. He's a very nice man in real life, despite being a very intense actor. Like I said, there are things to like about this movie, no question about it. And Amy Adams as Lois Lane, I definitely think she's an upgrade from Kate Bosworth. Do I think she's my favorite Lois Lane? No, but I think she's still pretty good.
I think all the acting in the movie's really good. I do like Lawrence Fishburne as Perry White. I don't mind Perry White being a black guy.
I also want to mention Russell Crowe as Jor-El. He was definitely a great choice for it. I love when he says, "You will give the people of Earth an ideal to strive towards. They will race behind you. They will stumble. They will fall. But in time, they will join you in the sun." That is a wonderful line. It's a line that has a lot of hope and positivity coursing through it, and it's just, I love that line. And, Russell Crowe is just a great actor in general. Anyone who's seen him in Gladiator can easily attest to that. Gladiator, A Beautiful Mind, Cinderella Man. He's a wonderful actor, and he really has a way with words. I also want to talk about Colonel Nathan Hardy, played by Christopher Maloney. I think he's a great character because you could say he goes through an arc. He gets face-to-face with one of General Zod's cronies, and she tells him, a good death is its own reward. And then he uses that against her later on in order to defeat her by blowing up, the ship and all that. And, he tells her a good death is its own reward. And so I thought that was very good.
Now we come to Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice, which came out in 2016. This is the sequel to Man of Steel and is a reboot of the Batman franchise. The movie takes plot elements from Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns and the Death of Superman story arc. Now, we already talked about this movie when we did the live-action Batman retrospective a few years ago, but fuck it, we're talking about it again. What do you boys think of Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice?
It is a mess. It is a big super mess. Oh my god, the plot of this movie is so confusing and all over the place. And, my god, the script is terrible. It has some good things going for it, chief among them Ben Affleck's performance as Batman, but yeah, I rarely watch this movie. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a few years. I have never seen the director's cut. I heard the director's cut isn't that bad, but I've only seen the theatrical version, and judging it on the theatrical version, it is a goddamn mess.
Well, I have seen the director's cut. It is okay. It does make the film better, but it's not as bad as the original cut. I will admit, it's a mess, but for some reason, I don't mind the film that much. There's, just like in Man of Steel, good things and bad things. Affleck was good as Batman, the fight scenes were pretty cool, the visuals were nice, but the bad where Jesse Eisenberg's Luthor sucked, and it is a little bit confusing at times. I don't know where this is leading or taking us.
Some of the cast is good. Ben Affleck is the best actor in the movie, and I got his autograph back in, I believe it was October of 2014. It was when he was a guest on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. I was at the barricade along with a bunch of other people. He arrived, and as soon as he arrived, all hell broke loose, and, all the low-life scum, all the low-lifes were pushing and shoving, and, it was very hard to get his attention, but I managed to get Ben Affleck's B on 5 of my items, 3 of which were Batman-related. At the time, there was only one photo of him as Batman in existence, so I got that signed, along with a couple comics, and Entertainment Weekly, and a Empire magazine. I really wanted a photo with him, and on his way out of the studio, I almost got it. I said, "Oh, can I get a photo with you?" And he actually looked at me and he nodded. Because all the fucking assholes behind me wouldn't stop shoving their photos in his face, he didn't do it. He left before he could do it, and I was so angry. It's like, that just shows how a lot of these fucking rude, obnoxious scumbags just ruin it for me and everyone else. I mean, it's that kind of behavior, which is why I rarely do this kind of graphing anymore. I can't take it anymore. I'm fed up with it.
Fair enough. From the stories you've told me, it's nothing I would ever do. I'll just stick to conventions if I want to get somebody's autograph or something. Now, to swing this back to the movie itself, I saw a review on this movie, and they were pretty dead on with what they said. They said it felt like they took random pages from 4 different Batman or Superman graphic novels and threw them together, and that was their script.
Yeah, I remember watching the Honest trailer for this movie, and they pretty much hit the nail on the head. They said that this is a really awesome Batman movie trapped in a really boring Superman movie, and I totally agree with that. Couple good things I can say besides Ben Affleck as Batman is, I do like that one of the plot points was that they were trying to make Superman accountable for all the damage he and General Zod caused in Man of Steel. I thought that was a very interesting way to go. Unfortunately, they really don't carry that out as well as they could have. When they go to his trial, they showed that in the trailers, and I was like, oh, okay, Superman on trial. That can be very interesting. But nope, they just have it explode, and that's it. There's no due process or anything. It would have been interesting to have seen Superman in the hot seat, Yeah,
and I also think with this movie's incarnation of Lex Luthor, they missed kind of an opportunity in the sense that what Lex Luthor really should have been was he should have been somebody who maybe lost everything during that battle with Zod in the first movie, and that's his motivation. That's his reason for hating Superman. And also, they should have gotten a better person to play Lex Luthor to begin with.
Yeah, his motivation in this movie isn't clear at all, and it's so bogged down, and it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And Jesse Eisenberg was terrible as Lex Luthor. He's too quirky, he's too eccentric, he makes Gene Hackman look serious. I've met Jesse Eisenberg before a few times, and he's a very nice guy, but a good Lex Luthor, he is not.
He's horrible.
The red capes are coming.
He was so bad in it. I was expecting Superman to use his heat vision to burn him out.
Everyone was so angry with the casting of Ben Affleck as Batman. The casting that made me raise an eyebrow was Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. And, when the first teaser trailer came out and you kind of heard all the voiceovers as the shot of the statue of Superman was coming into view, I did actually like his delivery of, devils don't come from hell beneath us. No, they come from the sky. And that kind of gave me hope at the time that, okay, maybe this won't be as bad as I thought it would be, but oh my god, I was so horribly wrong. Yeah, again, they just wasted a big opportunity here pitting Superman and Batman together. Plus, as I mentioned before, they could have had a really good thing going with the Superman on trial thing, which they completely squandered.
I do not like how they used the death of Superman story arc in this. One, I did not like the whole idea of Doomsday being a resurrected Zod. And also, we didn't get to know this version of Superman well enough for his death, or quote-unquote death, to actually mean shit.
Oh, I completely agree with that. They really dropped the ball with that. That was so mishandled and badly done. Doomsday also looks terrible. He doesn't look like he should from the comics. And also, we've got to talk about that Martha scene.
Martha!
Yeah, when I first saw this in the theater and I saw that scene, I immediately said to myself, oh my god, people are going to be making fun of this scene for years and years to come.
Yeah, I cringed when that scene happened.
Me and my dad were looking at each other like, are you freaking serious? That's the best way they could come up with for Batman and Superman become best friends. Both their mothers are named Martha.
Yeah, I mean, this whole movie was definitely a big misfire. And, the fight scenes are awesome, but... oh man, it's not a good movie by any means.
A movie with some flaws, but at the same time, I don't mind the film that much. It's not great. It's a film I don't mind watching every now and then. I have no problem with it.
Again, I still need to see the director's cut, maybe give that a fair shake, but overall, it's not a very good film. And now we come to 2017's Justice League, which we also talked about in our Batman retrospective. I like Justice League. I know it has a lot of problems. I kind of look at this one as just a B movie. What do you think of Justice League?
I haven't seen it in a very long time, but I remember not really liking it when I did see it. And I thought it was pretty bad.
Again, even though I love the idea that they all come together, but I don't like the film that much, even though I like the actors in it, but I think the film was just boring, not that interesting.
Again, I enjoyed it kind of for a cheese level. To me, it was just kind of a cheesy B-movie that happened to have a big Hollywood budget. I know the film had a really troubled production, like it was originally directed by Zack Snyder, then Joss Whedon took over, and I know there was some tragedy in Zack Snyder's life where his daughter committed suicide, so that probably did have an impact on the production.
Yeah, I remember hearing all sorts of things about this troubled production. I had a feeling it was going to turn out bad even before it was released, and I was right, it was.
Again, I'm not trying to defend it in that I think it's a good movie, because I don't think it's a good movie, but it's a film I personally enjoyed. Yeah, we do gotta talk about how the villain is an absolute cartoon character.
Yeah, he's pretty bland and forgettable, and I remember reading somewhere that Ciarán Hinds, when he filmed his scenes, he wasn't even on the set with the actors playing the heroes, and it really shows. It's so disjointed, and it's so... when you watch the interrogation scene of The Dark Knight and Batman is pummeling the Joker, you feel every one of those hits because it was actually happening. You feel the rage that Batman is feeling, which was brought on by the Joker. Here, it's just, you don't get anything like that. It's, they're not together, and it's just a computer effect, and it's just not... it's not good.
Yeah, I agree. This film was boring. The effects are really, really bad. It's like you were watching somebody who was making a video game.
Forget to mention Henry Cavill's mustache.
Oh yeah.
You see, I never noticed that. It never really stuck out to me. I
remember when I saw this, I'm like, what is wrong with Henry Cavill's face? Why does he look like he had plastic surgery or something? But I didn't realize at the time he was making the sixth Mission Impossible film at that time, and the guy had a mustache and he couldn't shave it off, so he had to put the green screen on his face. It just looks so weird. I'm like,
I think this movie is an excellent example. Both this and Batman vs. Superman are excellent examples of how DC was kind of pathetically trying to compete with Marvel, but they completely missed the point of why the Marvel Cinematic Universe worked.
I totally agree with that. Marvel took their time and was careful. DC did neither of those things.
Yeah, I agree, because of what Marvel did the last few years, that's what DC was trying to do, but they really just messed it up in the end. And here's a quick question. People count this as a trilogy for Henry Cavill's Superman. Do you agree or disagree? This is just your opinion.
Well, yeah, I mean, if he's not going to be playing Superman again, I don't know, is he?
At this point, I don't think so.
Yeah, if he's not going to be playing Superman again, yeah, you could call this trilogy.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
As a Stephen King fan, I appreciated the little Pet Sematary references that Flash kept making when they were afraid of what will happen if they bring Superman back.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny, too.
Banter between Bruce Wayne and Barry Allen, that was pretty good. That was, I guess, one of the film's only good things. I also just want to mention the scene where Bruce is in Barry Allen's... I don't know, is it a hideout or whatever it is?
Yeah, I guess you could say it's a hideout.
And, he says, Barry Allen, Bruce Wayne. And Barry Allen just goes, that still doesn't explain what you're doing here and, why you're sitting in my chair. And I just love that about Bruce, that he just, Yeah, he just goes in whenever he feels like. He just welcomes himself, and it's like, dude, you're kind of invading people's personal space by doing that, you know?
Now, briefly, I want to mention Shazam. It's not technically a Superman movie, but he does have a very, very, very brief cameo in it. I also want to mention it because this was actually my favorite of the DCEU. Have either of you guys seen Shazam?
Yes, I have, and it's a very fun movie.
I saw it, and it was better than the movie trailers, and I really enjoyed it a lot.
I thought it had a lot of heart, actually. Like, it was actually a really good, like, coming-of-age comedy. Okay, now that we're done talking about the Superman movies, I do want to mention some of the live-action Superman TV shows. We already talked about Adventures of Superman, so we'll skip over that one. In 1988, and I think this ran from 1988 to 1992, there's a show called Superboy. Have either of you heard of that or know anything about it?
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
I've never heard about it.
And then in the 90s, there was the series Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. I remember seeing some of this when I was a little kid, but I only remember one episode. It was an episode where Superman battled a voodoo priest, but that's the only episode I actually remember of the show. Have either of you seen this show?
I have, and I enjoyed it very much. It had a lot of interesting plots, and Dean Cain and Terry Hatcher had some great chemistry. I did meet Dean Cain at Chiller Theater in 2014, and he was very nice. And yeah, he's just a great guy, I think. Do I think he's the best Superman? No, but that doesn't mean he wasn't still a good one.
I've heard of it, but I've never seen an episode. I just know about the show, that's all I know.
And then in 2001, and this ran until 2011, there was the show Smallville. I've seen a few episodes here and there. I was never like a diehard fan, but I know a lot of my friends were really into the show. What do you guys think of Smallville?
I never watched it, but I've heard it's very good. I remember watching a clip with the late Christopher Reeve in it, which I thought was very good.
I used to watch. This is like probably like one of my favorite like Superman things like ever, regardless of like comic books, movies. It was like probably one of the best Supermans ever because they really did a great job of like exploring his teenage years up into his adult years, and also one thing I also love the show is Tom Welling. He was excellent as. Even with not having him as Superman, like wearing the suit, it was still like pretty cool and interesting to see something different. Like, okay, we're seeing just Clark Kent as when he a kid for like growing up with like these superpowers as he's progressively is developing new superpowers and he's growing up. And Michael Rosenbaum, the best Lex Luthor, period. What I liked about his performance compared to other Lex Luthor actors was he starts out as friends with Clark, but as time goes on, when like he really starts to become more evil, they really become enemies.
And again, I've only seen a handful of episodes of the show, so I can't really comment too much on it. And then starting in 2015, and I'm pretty sure the show's still going, you had Supergirl, which it's Supergirl, but still it's tied in with Superman. Have either of you seen Supergirl?
I have not.
Me neither. I haven't seen an episode yet.
And I believe Superman has made some appearances on some of the shows that take place in the Arrowverse. I don't know if you're too familiar with that.
I am familiar with the show, but I haven't watched it. But I do know that Superman makes appearances on Arrow, and I think I'm not sure if he made an appearance on Flash, but don't quote me on that one.
I've watched some Arrowverse, mainly the Flash portion of it, but I stopped a long time ago, so I really never got to the Superman part.
In 2018, there was the show Krypton, which I believe was supposed to be about Kal-El's grandfather, I believe, from what I understand. Have either of you seen Krypton?
Nope.
No, I haven't seen it.
So I figure we'll end this video off talking about what some of our favorite Superman comics are. I picked out 4 that I really want to talk about. 2 of them are by Alan Moore. One is For the Man Who Has Everything. Basically, the plot is Batman and Robin and Wonder Woman go to the Fortress of Solitude for Superman's birthday, but they find that he has this alien parasite attached to him, and basically this parasite puts Superman in sort of a dream state where he dreams, what if Krypton never blew up and he was able to live out a long and happy life as Kal-El on Krypton. But you also see sort of the consequences of this, where Jor-El is pretty much a laughingstock now because Krypton never blew up, and he's become kind of a right-wing lunatic where he's joined what is essentially Krypton's version of the Ku Klux Klan. It's a brilliant story. It kind of reminded me a lot of the Nikos Kazantzakis novel Last Temptation of Christ, which was a book about the devil tempting Jesus by showing him a vision where he was never the Messiah. I'm not sure if Alan Moore took inspiration from that book or not, but it would not surprise me. Have either of you read that story?
I haven't, but I want to. I've seen the Justice League episode that was based on it, and it is fantastic. So, yeah, at some point, I definitely want to read that story.
This was actually the first thing I ever read of Alan Moore before I even knew who he was. So I read Watchmen, and it is a great story.
The other one, also by Alan Moore, that I really recommend is Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. This one, what I really like about this one is it kind of feels like, I almost feel like this is Alan Moore's statement about how dark comic books were becoming at the time. The story's really about Superman dealing with old enemies, but they're coming back a lot darker and a lot meaner, and I kind of feel like this is Alan Moore's satire on how dark comic books were becoming, which is ironic because Alan Moore is one of the people who is responsible for comic books becoming so dark. Have either of you read Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow?
Again, unfortunately, I haven't, but I still want to, because I've heard it's very good.
I haven't read it yet either, but at some point I want to read because I heard it's really good.
The other Superman comic I highly recommend is Mark Millar's Superman Red Son. Basically, the premise of this is, what if Kal-El, instead of landing in Kansas, actually landed in Soviet Russia, and you get this really cool alternate history where, what if Superman was in the Soviet Union, and how would that have affected the Cold War? It's a brilliant graphic novel. Have either of you read?
No, unfortunately, but I do plan on seeing the animated adaptation of it, which is coming out soon.
Yes, I read it and I loved it. It was really, really cool and really original, something really different. It's something I never would have thought of, in a Superman comic book, in alternate reality. Instead of being raised by the Kents, he's raised by the Soviets.
Fortunately, I'm not as well read in Superman as I am Batman. I've read a few individual Superman comic books, but they're pretty few and far between.
Alright, and the other one I want to mention is Max Landis's Superman American Alien, which is a really cool take on Superman's origin. It's a retelling of his origin, but it's cool because, you see all the residents of Smallville actually know about his powers. They know he's Superman, but they're keeping it a secret from the rest of the world. It's a really cool one. Have either of you read that one?
No.
John, what are some of your favorite Superman comics?
That was hard to think about because I agree with Jim. Even though I've read Superman comic books, but I haven't read as much with Batman. There actually is one story that comes to mind that I really enjoyed. That I read I think maybe a year or two ago was I don't know what the name of it was. When you get a chance, look up Christopher Reeves, Superman comic artwork. I think it was called Secret Origin. It was just a retelling, and what I really loved about it was the artwork, how he paid tribute to. You can tell that the artist was a huge fan of Christopher Reeves, and.
All right, and Jeremy, you said you haven't really read too many.
Not too many, although I have read some comics related to the death of Superman and his resurrection, so I've read those, and a few other random ones, but none of the big ones that you've mentioned, but I do want to at some point.
Before we start recording this, you did mention how you wanted to talk about Dark Knight Returns, because Superman is kind of the villain of that one.
Yes, I did. I absolutely did. Yeah, I thought that was a great way to show Superman as the villain for once. I think that was really the first, I could be wrong, but I think that was the first time where he was portrayed as a full-fledged villain, he really doesn't want to be the bad guy, but he kind of has to be in order to serve what he believes to be the greater good. And, the chemistry between him and Batman is just terrific. Frank Miller, he didn't like that early comics sort of portray them as happy-go-lucky friends. He decided that he'd make them sort of not totally enemies, but definitely not friends. He made it to where they grudgingly tolerated each other, and I think that was a very good angle to go by. It's a very interesting and powerful way to show Superman, I think.
So, any closing thoughts on Superman and his legacy and all that?
He's a great character, and he deserves all the acclaim he gets. And he's had a lot of good and a lot of bad film adaptations. And I hope we get many more good than bad ones in the future.
Superman is a great character, and maybe down the road I'd like to read some more comic books of Superman that I haven't read yet. And
So that was our retrospective on the live-action Superman movies and TV shows.